Good afternoon and welcome to this session titled Unleash Student Creativity with Music First, Creativity, Composition, Recording, Production, and Student Voice. This session is perfect for general music classrooms that reach students beyond traditional ensembles. The goal today is not to turn every student into a performer first. The goal is to give every student a creative outlet and way into music making so that the lessons and tools that we will discuss today are perfect for that. My name is Giovanna Cruz. I'm the head of professional development at MusicFirst. I am a cellist and former orchestra director in the Austin Independent School District, where I taught for 7 years, a long time ago. Since then, I have spent the last 12 years working in the music education technology field in both customer education and customer success. Here at MusicFirst, I oversee the creation of learning materials and professional development experiences so your students and teachers, if you're an administrator here today, can succeed with MusicFirst. I am also behind the MusicFirst Academy, which you may or may not have heard of, which is a learning platform with courses to learn how to use the products that we offer. You can visit that at www.musicfirstacademy.com and enroll in free courses to learn more about the MusicFirst products. Some of the courses that we offer even offer certificates of attendance with PD hours. So if you're looking for deeper learning and or some certificates there, you can find those in there. Now with me today is our main presenter, Jillian Catchy. Welcome, Jillian, and thank you for being here. Jillian is a veteran music educator and music technology specialist and lifelong advocate for student creativity. During her 33-year career in the Newburgh Enlarged Schools City School District, she taught general music, piano, music technology, and vocal music at every level, most recently directing the choirs at Newburgh Free Academy. A frequent presenter at county, state, and national conferences, Jillian has helped countless students explore and express their musical ideas through both traditional and technology-based learning. Now she serves as ambassador and engraver for MusicFirst, as well as operations manager for the Cayuga Chamber Orchestra Youth Orchestra. Jillian also brings a unique blend of classroom experience, leadership, and innovation to music education. Her passion for empowering students through technology makes her an ideal guide for today's discussion on unleashing student creativity with MusicFirst. So welcome, Jillian.
Thank you.
Before we dive in, I do have a couple of housekeeping items to address. So please know that this session is being recorded and will be shared via email with the registrants after the event. We have the chat enabled for comments, but if you have specific questions that you want us to answer at the end of the session, please put them in the Q&A section at the top of your screen, because that's the best way to manage any commentary that is coming through and to triage those questions. So let's begin. All right, before I pass it over to Jillian, I just want to introduce the session. So picture the students that are not in band, that are not in choir or in orchestra, but they're still full of musical ideas, right? Because all of us human beings are musical beings. So what is the challenge with those students? If the first task that we assign to them is a public performance or polished musicianship, many of them are probably going to disengage because they simply don't play an instrument. So that's why we need to provide creative entry points for that quote unquote other 80%, right? MusicFirst is a great tool that can help teachers build creative ramps into music through low stakes practical projects. And we're going to talk about some of those projects today. So we're going to introduce tools and specific classroom projects that help students work on their creativity. Using the MusicFirst Classroom as an ecosystem, because it contains content as well as software applications, we're going to look at specific creative tools, then translate examples of a specific lesson plan sequence that Jillian created into project ideas that teachers can use. And you're actually going to walk away today with a nice packet of these lessons that Jillian will be sharing as a PDF. So the goal for students with these projects is gradual confidence, where they learn the space that they're going to be working in before they're asked to record themselves or create a finished piece. Okay, so start with a tool, lower the performance pressure, then build towards student voice. Quickly about MusicFirst, it's an ecosystem that brings together creative software and classroom structures so teachers can assign, support, review, and extend student work. The most powerful projects often combine tools where a student can notate an idea, then produce it in a DAW, record audio, then share or reflect. I'm going to quickly go through the tools that are contained in what we call the creativity bundle. And these are the tools that support student creativity in many different ways. The first two tools I'm going to address are Noteflight and Flat, and they're notation-based creativity tools. Usually in that creativity bundle, you have one or the other, not both, because it's not necessary to have two notation tools. For general music, if that is what you teach, notation does not have to necessarily mean a full-fledged composition or even a full unit on notation, right? It could mean arranging a short melody or maybe creating a motif or just starting to learn about notation in general, perhaps building a rhythmic idea, or preparing material that later moves into a production workflow. So one important thing to know about these notation tools is that they also export to Soundtrap, one of the DAWs or digital audio workstations that we are going to discuss next, right? Now on your screen, you have two icons there. One is Soundtrap and UStudio. These are DAWs, digital audio workstations, and they're both available in MusicFirst. Again, you typically probably choose one over the other or not both, but you could also explore them both if you have them in your package. These are the types of tools that support the lesson series that we're going to go through today. So you can open projects, you can name tracks, use the playback controls, muting and soloing, splitting, trimming, moving regions of a recording, all of those things. And so DAWs are especially powerful for students who think creatively through sound before they're working on notation. And then the last tool I want to mention is OGen Plus. It's a tool that helps students and teachers get unstuck creatively because it provides prompts and patterns. It has some video lessons included in there that really help students get going. And they serve as starting points that students can shape, edit, arrange, perform, record, or produce. It's a great tool for subplans, and it displays the beat sort of as a wheel with a pattern that can help the students visualize the subdivision of the beat. So it could be used kind of as a great scaffold for building the foundation of rhythm. So I'm going to quickly go over to MusicFirst here, show you where those tools are, how to find them and open them, show you quickly that OGen Plus, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jillian, who is going to go through all of the lessons that we will be discussing today. So on your screen, you should be seeing MusicFirst. Jillian, can you give me a thumbs up if that's what you see? Awesome. All right. So I have a bunch of classes here. I want to direct your attention to the upper left corner where you see software. When I click there, these are the tools that are available in my instance of MusicFirst. Mind you, because I work here, I have all the tools, but if you're buying the creativity bundle, you're going to see a subset of these. And so the notation tools are Flat, which I talked about over here, the second green icon from the top left, then Noteflight, the third one from the right on the top row. Then there's OGen Plus over here. And then on the bottom row, there's Soundtrap, it's the purple one, and then UStudio. To open any of these applications, you just simply click on them, and they pop up on a new tab, and then you can start notating. That's for Flat. This is what Noteflight would look like. And like I mentioned, both of these, and these are some scores that I have in here. Both Flat and Noteflight are going to export to Soundtrap, which could be a great thing for one of your later projects. And then for the DAWs, we have Soundtrap again, click and it opens. They've just launched video scoring, so that could be a really cool thing to explore. And so there's music projects, there's podcast projects, and now there's the new video project where students can put music to a video. That is also possible in UStudio. And then the interfaces of Soundtrap and UStudio are similar when you come to the workspace in terms of tracks and whatnot. So UStudio opens directly to where you create the tracks. Soundtrap, as you saw, get meeting controls out of the way. Soundtrap, as you saw, opens to this initial window, but once you start a project, the interface is similar in that you're going to have the tracks on the left side, and you can add different instruments, voice types, etc. And there's even, let me add here, say guitar, or whatever. And then you also have a library of sounds that you can explore. And then lastly, there was Ogen Plus, which is this tool right here that will include some lessons, which are great for, say, substitute plans. There's some project starters here. And what I wanted to show you here, let's say I want to, let's talk about film music. It's going to show me not just the beat pattern or the wheel here on the left. Well, in this case, this is a project that it's a starter project, but it's going to have video here on the right side that is loading currently, that is going to explain how to work through the whole video. And then because this is a starter, there's some things pre-filled in there. So let's go back home here. Let me show you that wheel from when you start a new project, which is that pattern that can help the students sort of understand the subdivision of the beat. So this wheel is one measure of music and the subdivisions of it in 16th notes. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and then students would be adding different sounds on the different subdivisions of the beat. So that's it for my quick overview. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Jillian, who's going to start talking about these awesome projects that she put together. So over to you.
So a tiny bit of background on this. This unit of 10 lessons came out of a prompt that someone asked me. Jay Matejko of MusicFirst asked me, how do you get kids used to recording so that they're actually willing to do it? And what would you do? And what would be your order of operations? So that is how this ended up in this sort of series of 10 lessons. And I specifically said I would not start with having them record anything. So this is scaffold 1 or lesson 1 would be, let's learn the territory. Let's actually know how to use the tools before we have to use the tools to make something important to us. And so what you're seeing here is a pre-populated project where I would simply be having them play, rewind, stop, rename a track, mute tracks. And this is an actual real project that used to be called Editing a Joke. All of those tracks are enabled and the kids are going to hear total noise if they hit play. So they will very quickly learn how to mute tracks and preferably solo tracks. And they'll know the difference and they'll learn that they want to really use soloing instead of having to click to mute a whole bunch of tracks. So that would be sort of my introduction. Like, here's a thing, play it back. And then I would ask certain questions like, oh, when do you hear XYZ thing? Give me a timestamp or a measure number of when that thing occurs. That would be my check for understanding. So that would be my introduction to them. I'm kind of doing a speed run on these because I know that you're going to get a recording and hard copies of things. So the second thing I would do with them is what I used to call slice and dice. So you're going to get a project, again, pre-populated. And in this case, this is the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's all out of order. So it's all sliced up. Put the Pledge of Allegiance back in order. I chose that because Many schools, the kids have been memorizing it since they were 5. Use whatever works for you. It should be something the kids know really well. One of the schools I work at has an earth pledge they do every morning. You could use something like that, but something that's well known. And they would not just reorder them, although that's challenging enough for some kids, but they would also have to remove silence, meaning put those regions closer or farther apart in order to keep a decent cadence in that recording, whatever it happens to be. And here they would also work on rolling and unrolling to trim unwanted sounds. I did deliberately put some unwanted sounds in there. So that would be the second thing. So it's kind of a collage sort of thing, ordering a collage. Let's see, next thing. The next thing I would move on to would be fixing something. You get teaching them to fix something. And my comment to myself is avoid the tragedy of a student deleting a great take because of one small problem or error. And I have seen way too many kids do that. Oh, I'll just redo it. And it was, it was a vocal singing thing and it was beautiful and they just didn't like one sound that they made. So here, and I think you can see it on the slide, they started with, one unedited region. We used the Command E to isolate the unwanted word. And then took that out and then moved the right-hand region over. And that's, if you think about the sequence of events that has to happen or the skills that have to happen, that is a skill all by itself, fixing a mistake. They're going to want to zoom in and out. They'll learn how to do that. You can make it harder. You can always make things harder. This one example is spoken, but if you want to make it super hard, take a piece of music and tell them, okay, take this out, but make the beats still line up. And they'll end up zooming way in on something like that. But, for those kids who already produced an album using GarageBand and they're in your class, give them something like that to do. Let's see what else. The other thing you could scaffold on with this is I think choral directors use this. I'm not sure about other disciplines, but it's called a forbidden pattern or forbidden word, where, I'm singing, you echo me. It's kind of like the musical version of Simon Says, where I sing a pattern, you sing it back, except for the forbidden pattern. If you sing that back, you're out. So this would be you're deleting the forbidden pattern. So that would be the thing. The next step in this would be something I call a digital scavenger hunt. And you should be able to see in the slide, something worth noting here. I think I noted this later in my notes, but you see an instructions track in most of my stuff. And that's because I always gave handouts back before we had LMSs or like, what do kids use now, Canvas or whatever. Before you could put your assignment digitally for kids, I put me telling them what they needed to do right in that track. And that keeps interruptions in your class down. It lets kids not feel embarrassed to ask, wait, what are we supposed to be doing? It's right there. And if kids really want, they can use the transcribe function within the DAW to read what you said if they don't want to listen to you in real time. So that's just about that. Back to the digital scavenger hunt. I've populated this. I gave them 5 things to go find these sounds. Go find them and record these sounds. And this would be the first time that they're recording. Now, I know we have a picture of a kid there with a Zune recorder. I don't think everybody has enough Zune recorders to use in their general music classroom, but their Chromebooks will still record, and we're not going for a Grammy here, so they can use the built-in microphone on their Chromebook to record these environmental sounds. Something to note. Hold on a second. I have a caveat here. Said that. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry, I skipped a page in my notes. The thing you want to do, the reason I pre-populated it is because if you say go record 5 things, my middle school classes would have used the entire period to decide what 5 things they were going to record. So I'm just going to give a list of 5 things. And if I have those kids are like, but I wanted to record this, I'm like, okay, go record a 6th thing if that was something you really wanted. Just get these 5 out of the way. the caveats on this are, this is going to have to function within the culture of your classroom and your school. So if your school is very restrictive about kids moving in the hallways or being in various places around the building, then you'll have to work with that. If you have a very small classroom, if you're on a cart, those are all adaptations you would need to make for this. But generally kids have a lot of fun finding these sounds. So, yeah. And of course, the next step after that is the opposite. This is going to be a reverse scavenger hunt where the kids pick 5 sounds, and you are absolutely going to have rules about this. Again, you're going to have instructions up there or in your LMS or in a handout. But they pick 5 sounds. I used to set up the soundtrack projects for them because there is a create assignment option in there. So could create that assignment once and then blast it out to all of the kids. And you see that they don't have names on them. It's just sound 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a track for them to put all of those sounds in one track in order. Kids are defining the sounds. This has a potential to get rather loud. And then you would have to make a decision about how we're going to ask other people to guess the sounds. Are we going to have a Kahoot type thing? Are we going to have kids share their projects and other kids weigh in on the chat? Because there is a chat function in most DAWs. You're also going to have rules about the sounds, especially if you have middle school age kids where they can get very creative in the sounds that they choose. So you could say, I want, and you're also going to, because kids, this is probably more high school age kids, are going to want to stump everybody. You're going to want to have a rule about, okay, they have to be as recorded, au naturel sounds, no effects allowed, please no pitch shifting, no flangers on there, no crazy stuff. It has to be the actual pure sound. And you're going to put limits on this as well. You're going to have to give time limits. You're going to say, whether they can be human produced but not vocal, or verbal. They could be vocal but not words, that type of things. But this is also another, and then of course the end of this would be, okay, people are gonna volunteer to share and let other kids guess, or people guess what those sounds are. So following up on that, we're going to use vocal sounds but not words. Okay, and the example for this is composer Jake Runestad talks about how he laid on his back in a practice room seeing the strangest sounds he could make with his voice, and that inspired the song Nyon Nyon, which every high school choral director wants to do because it's an awesome piece. So let's make human sound effects, so to speak. But that doesn't have to be just your voice. It could be the sound of people's feet running. It could be body percussion. It could be human generated sounds, other types of things. So this has a potential to be very, very loud. So once again, you have to sort of weigh your tolerances of how much you can put up with in any given class period. Or you could flip your classroom and say, okay, do your recording not during class time. So then we're going to move on to actually using our voice as a voice to convey information, but we're going to give a script because it's much easier if you know what you have to say ahead of time. And again, you could, in this case, I fall back on my own Stand by the Pledge of Allegiance because kids can recite that in their sleep. Usually, and it works really well if it's something that's memorized. I like to have them work in pairs. You see that the slide here shows person 1 saying the pledge, person 2 saying the pledge. When they do that, they're going to get more practice on record enabling and muting and soloing particular tracks. Otherwise, they'll end up with a mess. And then you see what I did on the bottom there. They get to revisit slicing and dicing, where I can say, okay, person 1, I'm going to use the beginning, and person 2 is we're gonna mix and match our phrases for our 2 people. So that's a nice review of something that they've already done. Moving on. So now we're going to move to more unscripted. So they've done a scripted thing, and we're going to move unscripted. And this would be sort of like a React video. If you've seen, the example used to be Mystery Science Theater 3000. My favorite example is PDQ Bach commentating Beethoven's Fifth as if it was a baseball game. More contemporary examples are Twins, the New Trend. That's a pair of twins who react to music they've never heard before, or Two Set Violin. They do a lot of react videos also. You have to give them something to react to, and I would do that. I wouldn't tell them to choose something to react to because, again, they'll use the whole period deciding what to react to. They can, however, if you want to offer flexibility, have them use a previous project to react to. So, for example, they can do their scripted and add a track and talk about, oh, I did this, it was really fun, or it was really annoying, or I had trouble with this, just talk to me, and give them a time limit of how long they need to be talking. And in the process, of course, they're going to be using the editing skills that they've already acquired and refining those. Now we're moving on to actually recording music. I used rounds a lot in my high school classes. They're a good old standby. So for this, we're going to try to record something fairly simple that they know really well. Again, we want as few new variables as possible. If we're trying to make a good recording, it should be something you already know how to do. So you could use really well-known songs like Happy Birthday or My Country 'Tis of Thee. If you have a school song, you could use a school song if the kids know it, or you could use simple rounds like such as Frere Jacques, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. I used to use one called Apples and Cherries because it was very short and very simple. But so again, the goal is to get them recording. They're going to use, record, enable the track, starting, stopping, trimming, not deleting the whole track because of one little piece that they didn't like. You're going to reuse all those skills that they're already comfortable with, but just on singing. If they are reluctant singers, which you're going to have in your general music classes, I had a lot of luck with kids working in pairs. So, okay, you don't want to sing alone, sing with your buddy or whoever you're paired up with for this project. If that still doesn't work, you would say, okay, you're going to do count and clap. But you're going to verbalize the count and clap. You're going to read the count and clap rhythm so I can tell it's you because I need to hear your voice. Instrumental kids might want to play their instruments. So if you're comfortable with that, I used to allow that. But again, I'd say, okay, but I need to hear your voice on there somewhere so I know it's you. Except for the English horn player, because nobody else played the English horn. So that's, let's see. Yeah, I got that. Okay. And then that brings us to lesson 10, which would be what we have here as a capstone, or in some places they call it a culminating activity or a culminating project. And that's where, okay, use everything you know to do something you want to do. Use your creativity, use whatever ideas you got along this journey of 9 previous lessons. It is okay to specialize. People specialize in the real world, in the professional world. It's okay for kids to specialize on these because they're all using the same software. I would, however, give a menu of choices and then tell kids, or you could come up with something on your own. And examples for this type of a final project would be a sound story. If you've got cool synthesizers available to you, and I had Korg X5Ds, which had these incredible sound libraries, you could tell a whole story just using some of those sound effects patches. You could do a live react like PDQ Bach or Twins the New Trend. You could do an interview because, again, I did most of my work of this type I did with partners. Life is easier when you go in pairs. And so, hey, interview each other or do a commentary with each other back and forth. You could do something musical. You could do a round, do a how-to narration of how to do something. Or you could bring in a creation from another app and talk about how you did it. So, for example, if a kid did something really cool in OGenerator, bring that in as a digital file and then tell me about it. Or a composition that you did in Noteflight or Flat and tell me about that. For this, you are going to want to give, again, guardrails or limits. You're going to want to give a minimum and a maximum time that, okay, your sound story needs to be at least a minute long. It can't be more than 5 minutes long. I once had a kid, I asked a simple question like, tell me something about yourself. Tell me your favorite flavor ice cream. And the kid spoke to me for 15 minutes on a recording because it was unlimited recording time. So you are going to want to put an upper limit on things. You're also going to want to put in what your required ingredients are. So for example, it should include at least one splice where you split a region in order to trim out unwanted silence or something. You can include extra credit ingredients such as bringing in a guest speaker or putting sound effects in there or putting in volume automation or volume curves. So that would be an option for that. If you have really high flying kids who, like the kids I mentioned earlier, who have already cut an album using GarageBand, a fun extension activity to this, which could be a project all by itself, would be, okay, go take your favorite board book from when you were little, read that book into the DAW, create a little theme song in the beginning and the end, create a page turn sound, and put in at least 3 sound effects, all on different tracks. And I did actually do that project with kids, and a really fun thing to do if you end up offering that extension and the kid actually takes that extension activity is then you send that recording to an elementary school and have the class, let the classroom teacher play it, or a kid gets to, now the kid has a read along book. And then if all of the planets align perfectly, that kid or that teacher might email back to the student who made the recording, which actually did happen with some of my students, saying, hey, this was really fun. Thank you so much. I enjoyed listening to it. And that is totally closing the loop on, relevance and Dewey, and pick your favorite learning theorist. But those are the possibilities where, and when kids see, wow, somebody really liked something I did and somebody used something I did and thanked me for it, that's a really wonderful thing. So. And that, I think, did I cover everything? I think that's all 10 of them. Sorry for talking so fast.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So instead of switching the display, I'll have you navigate the slides if that's fine. So if you could go to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk briefly about working across platforms, because at the beginning I mentioned we had the notation, then we have the DAWs, and then we also have OGenerator. So a practical workflow that Jillian alluded to as well could be that students create a short motif or perhaps an arrangement in Noteflight or Flat, or compose an idea or what have you, right? And then they export it into a DAW such as Soundtrap or UStudio. It could be a recording that they make, or a composition that they create, or anything really. And then they could add sounds that they find or spoken commentary, like Jillian mentioned, and then export that final product. And so that workflow can be as simple as one notated idea and one recorded layer. So think of combining notation with DAW as compose, arrange something, then export or transfer, then record an extra layer, then edit or mix, and finally share the product. Let's move on to the next slide. So some of the exporting and sharing options include MIDI between notation and a DAW. Flat and Noteflight, they both will send over to Soundtrap. You can also export as an audio, and then you can end up with a portfolio of activities and projects that students have that serve as evidence of work, right? All right, so next one. Now, you have to manage also how you're going to use the technology and how it's going to work in your classroom. So all of the mentions of having guardrails on the projects and giving them a list of ingredients to include, if they're going to be navigating the hallways to record sounds and whatnot. You know your school, you know your community, you know the rules that your administrators have in place. And then this whole idea of sharing roles or splitting roles so that the person that records is not necessarily the same person that edits, because in real life it's like that. You'll have an artist recording an album and then you'll have somebody else producing it, right, and making the edit. So the students don't have to do everything at once, and this relates to how real life works. Other things for managing include using checklists for evidence of work, since these can be open-ended projects where there isn't a single right answer, right? You want to make sure that students are following the steps and they have a checklist of things to follow. Partner playback could be done as a whole class activity if the students are willing to share in that larger environment. And then also using reflection prompts that ask students what they changed, if it's a project where they need to change something, why they changed it, and what they would improve next. All of these are things that spiral into higher order thinking abilities. So as we are getting close to ending the sharing portion of this webinar, where we share information with you, we want to leave you with some ideas to reframe assessment away from polished performance only, right? In these projects, success can look like a name track, a clean edit, a sound placed intentionally, a student explaining a choice, or a group using roles effectively. All of these are valid musical and creative outcomes, especially in general music. So as we approach the end of the webinar, we want to encourage you to choose one project that fits your students and your schedule. And you don't have to do everything, and you don't have to go big, right? Start small, try it out, see how it works. A 45-minute lesson can be enough if the outcomes are focused in, like, say, students learning the territory or editing a sentence or collecting 5 sounds, or you can use all 10 of the lessons if you like them. And so to close the portion of presentation, remember that every student has something musical to offer, right? Human beings are musical inherently. So consider that other 80% of students, the 80% that is not necessarily in performance classes, and what can you offer them so that they can express themselves creatively through music, be it composition, production, whatever. MusicFirst can help teachers make creativity visible and accessible for students who may not begin with traditional performance confidence. We invite you to leave with one concrete next step, one familiar classroom routine, one new MusicFirst tool skill, and one creative product that students can share. So now we're going to open it up for questions, and I'm sure Jillian can show some flows or anything that you are interested in learning more about. Thank you. Okay, we do want to let you know that our support is available via phone and email. You can see that it's support at musicfirst.com, or you can call the number on the screen. We also offer some 15-minute check-ins for customers. So if you're interested in talking to someone in our support team, you can scan that QR code and find a time that's available that works for you, and you can have a 15-minute conversation with one of our support team members to help you work out through any troubleshooting or questions that you may have. And then on the next slide, we have another QR code for you to give us some feedback about today's training. Let us know what you thought about it and how we might be able to improve for future sessions similar to this.